Oh, yeah. Hey!
Hey!
Dana is here, so be nice in the chat.
Why is tomorrow and next week's UFC so bad? Well, let me ask you a question. How's it bad when it hasn't even happened yet? Shut the up. Watch it tomorrow, and if it's bad, tell me it's bad. All right.
Guys, try not to starve on your way to hitting the like button. April 21st, 2026, and that was Dana White showing his appreciation for audience feedback on the quality of his multi-billion-dollar, super popular career-generating industry. I think the UFC should start a program where any criticism thrown at the UFC, be it through the internet or through any other method, has to be justified. You have to sell your ID through hand-to-hand combat. Yeah, if you don't like the card that UFC is putting out, you can always make it a better card simply by getting into shape and participating in the card yourself. The thing about the UFC is that literally anyone can do it. What's so special about getting punched in the face a few times and then hugging another man until one of you passes out? Really, at this point, you could throw anyone in there and it would be just fine. I think Dana should start farming these chats for potential cards. Uh, I mean, all he has to do is say, "Oh, if you don't like what I put together for this week, I'm putting you on the card for next week. Don't worry. Just be ready." And then the whining. Dana doesn't accept constructive criticism from fans. All right, listen. If you are out there thinking fans have constructive criticism, I don't know what to tell you. I honestly don't know what to tell you. No, they don't. No, they don't. Especially not with something the size of the UFC. See, what fans have is an internally motivated self-help guide to how to make sure they continue to control the product, which is absolutely fair to everyone except every other fan, employee, or performer in every entertainment industry who isn't the specific fan making the complaint. Nah, content and product is built on what the creators believe will work, and if it doesn't, at least they're taking criticism for a decision they made, not something they outsourced from Billy Bumrush in an internet chat room, because excuses never go very well, especially not when you blame someone who should have never had a say in the first place. That's actually why we love fans, by the way. We see you, we appreciate the heavy lifting, and sometimes we do take your ideas. We know you're all closet comedians, hyper-rational political pundits, and UFC marketing geniuses in the making, and you would be shocked at how often your feedback goes into making the product better, simply by doing, the exact opposite of what you asked for. I'm kidding. I'm kidding, of course. No one in the public space could do any of what they do without the fans and critics who make entertainment what it is, and quite frankly, if the banter stopped, so would the value. Just keep it up. You are helping, whether it feels like it or not. And honestly, Dana White is one of the most criticized men on the planet, rightfully so. Dana owns one of the most beloved brands on the planet. You can't have that and expect no criticism from those who both do and don't know what they're talking about. Which is why you see Dana engage with the criticism so gracefully. On that note, a man who loves to complain about how often he gets criticized is Ontario's belovedly insincere and perpetually whiny premier, Doug Ford. I mean, let's watch as he complains about how often the things he does are called out as making no sense whatsoever.
I also understand the scrutiny. There's no one in this country that is scrutinized more than I am. I'm willing to take that. What kind of really disturbs me is the inconsistency with the media. We have the federal government, rightfully so, and let's put the prime minister to the side. That they went out and bought $753 million of jets for the ministers, rightfully so, by the way. We live in a massive country. No word. When it comes to the Quebec, buying $107 million of 3 jets, which I agree. They live in a massive province. No scrutiny. But when I do it, I guess there's a double standard, and that's my position. I have to take that.
The reality of Doug Ford is he was elected almost solely on the idea that Ontarians were obsessed with money. I mean, yes, when people have very little, they tend to be obsessed with it. Buck of beer, driving instead of flying, the cost of housing, and the cost of doing business, all things Doug was able to weaponize into his platform to take power in an already struggling province that had gone from net positive to welfare state in what felt like the shortest decade in human history. Let's be clear. Doug's plan for making housing cheaper is to drop the 13% sales tax on all homes in Ontario that are priced out to less than the ridiculously low amount of 1 million Canadian dollars. That, of course, means that the only newly acquired domiciles that will be affected by Doug Ford's master plan are tiny homes and tents built in the middle of the wilderness. And to be honest, that's fine with me. After all, who wants to look at those undermonetized losers who can't afford or don't want to contribute to increasing the GDP of China and instead just want a roof they can defend from the incoming wave of fentanyl crazed zombies wearing orange shirts and weird scarves who chant all praise to the immortal Avi while they intend to wedge their way into the most affluent bank account they can possibly manage? See, the average price of a home in Toronto, whether it's freestanding or 20 stories up and overlooks Lake Ontario, is $1.5 million. The plan affects exactly zero Toronto residents and seems designed entirely to push those with the cash to downsize in order to save a little bit of their nest egg, while not giving buyers any reason at all to purchase the property those owners are vacating in order to make themselves liquid. See, Doug, what homeowners are worried about is that they appear to have lost their retirement savings because they literally cannot flip their home from their domicile to a liquid asset. A house used to be the ultimate investment in one's comfortable conclusion to their post work lifestyle. Now, home ownership is a liability most won't even try to do because why would anyone invest in a market that can't predict what its value will be 2 weeks from now, never mind in 50 years? And how about that driving instead of flying? Doug used to sell us on the idea that he understood the travel issues of the underfunded and overtaxed common Ontario employee. I remember back in the day, I used to travel with my family every year to either Florida or California. And for years, we spent 2 weeks at Disneyland or Epcot Center or whichever other theme park we could possibly find. But of those dozens of trips, I can only remember one that was actually done by plane. It was my father's way of admitting that flying a family of six all over the continent twice a year was ridiculous when you could just give up a day or two and, take a car. The reality is that if my family could have afforded to live comfortably and travel by air, then that's what we would have done. But we didn't. So I understand what you mean when you say drive instead of fly. That's literally what everyone you were talking to did in order to both have fun and feed their families at the same time. The touche. Excellent marketing plan. The problem for Doug now is that even though we're told the public and our entertainment audiences have the memory of a goldfish, we all know that's not true. Once you tell people that you are so dedicated to the financial and budgetary restraints of a province that's trying to reverse a free falling employment ratio, that you will literally drive everywhere instead of fly, they expect you to keep that promise no matter how inconvenient it is for you. And no amount of justification or complaining about criticism will change that. I mean, good luck telling anyone that your private jet was a financial optimization plan when your campaign was literally get a van. It's cheaper. Voters aren't known to be fair, Doug, and neither is the media, and neither are politicians, to be fair. Life isn't fair, Doug. We've all come to terms with that. You can stop whining now. The irony is that you were only right about the plane if the chartered flights weren't involved in the equation. Maybe start giving public statements on the status of Crown Royal production over Zoom next time instead of an $80,000 flight just to dump out a bottle of alcohol that you would never touch with a 10-foot pole, according to you. And who can forget the buck of beer, of course? That's the one where Doug convinced the best of us that it was better to be drunk than housed. This is the part where he declared that dragging yourself out of the gutter you can't remember falling into was part of the essential human experience. And if it couldn't be done cheaply, with a $24 case of human sludge, I mean, what good were human rights anyways? So yes, the federal government spent $750 million on military planes doubling as transportation for their ministers, and yes, Quebec dropped $100 million on ambulance and police planes that also are used as vehicles for politicians to move around the province. But to be fair to them, the federal government also cut thousands of jobs to prove that they understand the bloat voters were complaining about, and Quebec is, Well, they're Quebec. I mean, at least they speak French. Ontarians and Canadians in general have come to terms with the reality that part of the reason they are struggling to find a job, retire, or maintain a home and simply keep food on the table is because the voters disengaged from politics and allowed their elected officials to act unchecked for far too long. If Doug feels that he is the most criticized man in Ontario, perhaps he should spend a day in the shoes of Mark Carney or even Pierre Poilievre. I mean, good grief, Mark gets pummeled not just by Pierre, but by the very world itself. And Pierre couldn't please the CBC if he beat Vladimir Putin in a UFC card, people would still complain about. When you're doing things that matter to people, people tend to pay attention and have criticisms when it doesn't, do what you say it'll do. So let's hold off on the criticism complaints here, Doug. You will always bear the brunt of the place Ontario is in right now, simply by virtue of being entrusted with the task of improving the quality of life here, as you promised. The voices will never get quieter, and they never should, because you knew that was a promise you couldn't keep, and yet here you are, still pretending to keep it. The reality is that until people feel the ground shift beneath their feet in a way that makes them less likely to write a strongly worded letter to their favorite political commentator, the spotlight will only continue to get hotter. Just ask Dana White about that.